to another U.S. immigration video where we discuss working and living in the United States and try to simplify that immigration process for you. So this video comes from a recent story that appeared in the news about a woman from Canada who attempted to apply for TN status at the southern border through Mexico and ended up getting detained for 11 days after that application. And there are several details with this case that I would like to discuss with you as a word of caution if you're applying for TN status. There's several things that were mentioned in the articles that I read, as well as a few of the news reports that I watched that were red flags from the beginning for this individual. That if this individual had obtained proper advice and had the right documentation, could have possibly avoided the situation that she found herself in. So first of all, what happened? Well, a lady was applying for TN status at the southern border for a marketing communications consulting position in the United States. Again, we don't know the entire details, just what they reported. It said that her profession was in marketing communications, and post application, she was detained, and they detained her for 11 days. Now, keep in mind, she was Canadian. She was applying through the Mexican border. She's not a citizen of Canada or a citizen of Mexico. She was a citizen of Canada. So that's a word of caution, number one. If you're applying through the Mexican border and you're not Mexican, then they could detain you before they release you and send you back to Canada if they find you inadmissible to the United States. This is not your home country. You're not Mexican, you're Canadian. So right there, she put herself in a situation applying through a country that was not her home country, applying through Mexico. First, she had a previous TN visa revoked. In the article, it states that she had been previously working for a company out of California, and that company had worked in the hemp industry. And if you're familiar with U.S. immigration, it's federal law, it's not state law. And although some states recognize marijuana and marijuana products as legal, the federal government does not. So that's a word of caution to Canadians where marijuana is legal in Canada. It is not legal federally in the United States. So her TN visa was revoked as a consultant for this company in California. And it could have been because they found out this was a hemp company that was working with marijuana products. But it also could be because she was in marketing communications and they found out she wasn't, in fact, a consultant. Again, we don't know the exact details why that visa was revoked, but it is important to understand that it was revoked, that she did have a previous TN visa revocation on her record before she went and tried to apply for another TN. And there are many factors behind why that could have been revoked. To me, the ones that I potentially see are what this company was doing was against federal law. Also, she could possibly been in a position that wasn't, in fact, consulting. She was a marketing professional instead of a consultant. And that's the second red flag here. Marketing communications isn't a TN occupation. It's not on the occupations list. And we see this a lot with sales and marketing professionals. They want to work in the United States. And they're Canadian, they're Mexican, and the TN is the quickest way to work in the US. Word of caution, sales and marketing are not professions that are directly listed on the TN occupations list. Sales and marketing professionals typically would apply under the H-1B visa. Unfortunately, there's not a quick fix for that. Sales and marketing professions, if that is what you are doing in management, whatever it is in sales and marketing, unless you're in fact a legitimate consultant working for a consulting company, is not an occupation on the TN occupations list. The third thing that was mentioned, and I heard this in what she said when she was being interviewed, she mentioned that they didn't like the fact that she did not have a professional offer letter. She did not have the proper letter that she needed to apply. So she applied without having the proper documentation. She did not have a properly written job offer from a U.S. employer on their U.S. letterhead meeting all of the requirements for TN status. That's a very easy one for an officer to refuse you under. So she had a lot of red flags before she even approached the border in Mexico to apply for this TN visa and made a lot of mistakes that unfortunately got her in a difficult situation. A situation that no one wants to be in, and it's unfortunate for her that she was put in that situation. Lessons learned. And we can avoid this, and you can avoid this if you are applying for TN status. And there's some simple things that you can do to hopefully prevent this from happening in your situation. Number one, look at your application before you apply for TN status. Make sure you have the proper documentation in order. And I'm going to give 5 essential components of a TN application that if you review these 5 things and all of them check out, then you should feel comfortable applying for TN status. Number one, are you Canadian or Mexican citizen? First thing, you have to be a citizen of Canada or Mexico. Number 2, is your occupation a listed occupation under the TN occupations list? Marketing is not an occupation on the TN occupations list. So if your occupation isn't listed, then you should question whether or not you qualify for TN status, and you should probably get professional advice as to whether or not what you're doing would qualify for a TN occupation. Number 3, do you have the qualifications? In this article, it doesn't talk about her qualifications. It doesn't say that she didn't qualify, that she didn't have the right degree or experience for a TN application. So if you are applying, however, make sure that you do. Make sure you have the necessary degree, experience, education that is required for the occupation under which you are applying. And the 4th is temporary. This has to be temporary engagement in the United States. TN visa is non-immigrant. They want to make sure that this is temporary, that you're not coming permanently to the United States. And the 5th one I'm going to throw in, just because of the nature of this article, is this individual had a previous record with CBP. This individual had a TN that was previously revoked and was reapplying. CBP has access, and no matter what port of entry you go to throughout Canada, throughout Mexico, throughout the world, has access to your immigration and criminal history. So you can't just go to another port of entry, or in this article it said she applied to the same port of entry that she was approved through before. Well, she was also revoked. So that port of entry who approved her would have had her on their radar in the notes in the system that she was they had previously approved her for a visa that was then revoked. So CBP has access to all of this information. Don't think that you can just go to a different port of entry and you can get different treatment because you're at a different port. No, they know your criminal history. They know your immigration history. It's very important to be honest and forthright when you're applying, and don't think that you can just slip through a different port of entry. That's not the case. If you miss any of these things, you could potentially be denied for TN status. And worst case in this situation, she was detained with ICE, and a horrible experience. So that's the extreme. We don't know all the facts in this case. For her to be detained and treated like that, there's a lot more that we don't know that led to that situation. But what we do know is she did not have the right documentation. She was not qualified for TN status based on what she presented to the port of entry. Therefore, it led to her denial for TN status. If you're applying for a TN, make sure that you check all the boxes. Make sure that your documents are in order. Make sure that you're honest and you're truthful in your application process. If everything checks out, you have all the proper documentation, then you should feel confident in the TN visa application process. If you need assistance with the TN visa application, we do TN visas all the time. This is our business, and we'd be glad to assist you with any TN visa application or other U.S. immigration related matters.